Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another video by yours truly. We have Sword of Convallaria in the spotlight for today's content, and I want to give a huge shout out and thank you to the development team for sponsoring this video and enabling me to bring to you a story review for the game with the time that I've spent with it. Now, in case you are worried about spoilers, rest assured we won't be touching up on the heart of the game's story. We'll only be introducing you to chapter 1 in the prologue, and then we'll go over a couple of scenes that I feel were quite compelling and reeled me into the story in terms of it being interesting, or the scenes contain some elements that I felt were going to be captivating to you. But I'm going to go ahead and tell you guys off rip, listen, if you like Final Fantasy Tactics, if you like Fire Emblem Three Houses, if you watch Game of Thrones, you're going to be interested in this game's story, okay? And if you end up liking what you see, don't forget to click the link down below in the description box or the pinned comment in the comment section to download Sword of Convallaria. It is completely free. With that being said, let's go ahead and get into it. Now, before we go straight into what the story is about, it's important to understand a story's setting and theme so that you don't go into it confused. Now, you probably still will be confused, but that will help alleviate some of that confusion. So, Japanese turn-based games, in case you didn't already know, they favor a certain era over all eras, and that is the medieval plus Renaissance era. And it's not hard to guess why. It's such a interesting era. It's where all the craziness and drama occurs. The theme of this era is going to be nobles versus commoners versus religion. Perfect recipe for discrimination, segregation, and problems. There's also going to be political warfare, conquest, and conflict. You got different kingdoms with different political figureheads trying to kill each other and secure as much power and control over their lands, as well as yours, as they can. Now that we understand that, let's go ahead and explain what the story is about. Sword of Convallaria's story starts you off in the middle of a jail cell, and you are a mercenary with amnesia. You have no earthly clue what you're doing here. And to make matters worse, the guards that put you there are now trying to kill you along with innocent civilians. I know, a hell of a way to kickstart a story straight into the juice and the drama. What's interesting is that these guards were labeled defectors, and they were having some very sussy conversations outside of your jail cell. And if you don't know what a defector is a person who has abandoned their country or cause in favor of an opposing one. So already, seconds into the beginning of the story, there is political conflict and warfare at play here by an external political figure or kingdom, who clearly wants to incite some kind of drama inside of the walls of the Kingdom of Iria. Anyways, they almost succeed in killing you until a strong, powerful Giga Chad of a woman kicks down the door and saves your life. In comes Raria. Raria appears to be a very strong, energetic, and capable soldier with charisma as well, might I add, who's also accompanied by two other comrades by the name of Mytha and Fakel, who refer to her as boss, which means they are definitely two figures that look up to this character. These three individuals want you to accompany them out of the jail cell because apparently there's something deeper at play, as Fakel makes it quite obvious. Now, at this particular point in the story, I'm already reeled in and interested. Like literally 5 minutes within, a lot is already going on. The minute we leave the jail cell, I'm thinking things are going to be smooth and dandy and we're going to get out of town, you know, the usual type of dynamic that occurs in these kind of games. Well, turns out the character that just saved us gets killed. Yeah, she does a noble sacrifice trying to prevent you guys from dying along with her, and y'all try to escape while she gets shot down by arrows. Gruesome death. Now, I really like this part, not the fact that Raria, our savior, got killed immediately, but because they introduced death so early to let you know right off rip that the characters you grow attached to and you end up liking, there definitely is a plausible cause for them to die now. So, and I love when stories do that because adding that in adds a preciousness to life, which I think is essential to storytelling in these games. Anyways, moving on, as soon as you make it outside, you realize that there is already a war ongoing within the walls of the Kingdom of Iria, and you guys are trying to escape. Also, at the same time, Mytha and Fakel have to deal with the death of their precious comrade, whom clearly they looked up to and referred to as boss. But they don't have time to have tears because y'all are in the middle of getting killed yourselves. And speaking of getting killed, turns out you guys couldn't make it out of town either. You end up getting sandwiched in by angry civilians and angry soldiers, and you end up dying. And that's it. That's the end of the story of Sword of Convallaria. Of course I'm kidding, guys. Come on now. The next thing that happens is you end up waking up in this enigmatic realm that looks pretty like omnipotent, and there's a sleeping cat there. And the cat ends up telling you that it took you out of the Sea of Chaos, which is the end of time and space, because it wants you to fulfill your duty as the main protagonist. And it turns out you can go back in time and change certain moments that occurred throughout history for the better to reshape the world and reshape destiny. However, you're missing one item, and it's called the Wheel of Fortune. Apparently, this tarot card can enable you to create time rifts to go back into time to do that. But the cat informs you that you don't want to go around doing all that by yourself, do you? Let's bring back a comrade. You end up summoning back Mytha, one of the comrades that was attached to the hip of Raria. You guys fill Mytha in on the details, and you go on your merry little way to go and collect the Wheel of Fortune. Now, on this journey, you discover that there's another force at play here in the fantastical theme of Sword of Convallaria, known as calamities. Calamities are these monsters that are pretty much, their whole purpose is pretty simple: destroy everything, right? You don't got to look too deep into that. Their purpose is to destroy everything. During this time, you run into too many calamities at once, and it looks like you're going to be meeting your second death here, right? We're not talking about a Souls game. I'm talking about Sword of Convallaria. But lo and behold, our trusty companion who saved our lives in the beginning comes back to life out of nowhere. She's alive again, Raria, and she's accompanied by Feikl. There you have it. Our merry little band is back together before you know it. He saves us, we get out of there, and we go back to the Elysium realm, and we just, enjoy and relish the moment of everyone being alive again. Now, I'll be honest, at this particular moment, I was pretty happy about that, but the first thing that came to my mind is, okay, I want to know, what is the relationship between Raria, Mytha, and Feikl? Because I don't really know who they are. Why are they so close knitted together? What's the background behind them? That is how we go into the chapter 1 portion of Sword of Convallaria. It's pretty much going to take you down the memory lane of Raria's background story, explaining how her, Feikl, and Mytha met, and then explaining how the mercenary band came to be. And now that you have the power of time, that's how you're able to go back to those moments of Raria's life and witness what happens, but also change any key moments that you may need to change to ensure that you've reshaped destiny for the betterment of the world. Now, with that understanding out of the way, let's talk about what we learned about Raria and who she was in chapter 1. Raria actually used to work for the king's army, but for whatever reason, she abandoned the king's army and became a lone wolf mercenary. In making this decision, she ended up losing sight of her purpose and what she's supposed to do. You're in the king's army, it's quite simple. Protect everyone and listen to the king. You leave the king's army, oh, what am I doing now? What's my purpose? You kind of got lost and went into a state of depression. Not depression where you go into a corner and cry, but the kind of depression where you're just going around doing things and you don't know why you're doing them. What is the reason for this? Why am I even here? That kind of depression. Anyways, she ends up in her own way fighting for justice by going through town to town and fighting off bandits and bad guys from ransacking villages and killing people because they're crazy. And in doing so, she comes across a burning village that was ransacked by bandits. She got there too late. Everyone's dead. She ends up killing all of the bandits. She's seeing red, man. She's in a state of anger. And she hears 2 people behind a wall. She's thinking they're bandits and she's out for blood. She tells them to come out. Turns out 2 little children, terrified, scared for their lives. And these 2 little children end up being Mytha and Feikl. So their first encounter was their lives being saved by Raria, the lone mercenary. And that is how they came to meet each other. Now, I find this interesting because that means they have been with Raria since they were little kids, because they're now grown adults. So these 3 have a very special bond because they have been together for a very long time. And then she raised them to be very strong and capable soldiers that can now fend for themselves and aid her in going from town to town and protecting all of the innocent civilians. Also, fun fact, In the pursuit of fighting for their own justice in their own little way, these three also established the mercenary band known as the Sword of Convallaria. That is going to wrap up my experience with chapter 1. Now, I don't want to spoil the whole story for you, so we're not going to go into chapter 2. Instead, we are going to check out a brand new element to the storytelling. So we have the Fool's Journey, which is the main story, but then we have the Spiral of Destiny, which is also attached to the main story with a spice. Sword of Convallaria has added a new mode where you can go experience certain elements of the story directly that are unfolding in real time as you're going through, and change how the main story is going to turn out. So this mode essentially enables you to go into the story that is unfolding in different kingdoms, figure out what's going on, and also make decisions that are going to change what happens in that main story. It's really cool. Not only does it do that, it'll decide who's going to live, who's going to die, and you can experience every single outcome in this mode. Now, I didn't have a lot of time available, so I only got to experience one path of the many different paths they had available. And I chose the one that I thought was going to be the most interesting, which was the path where you get to know about the Prince of Iria, which is the kingdom you're trying to save, the kingdom where all the stuff is popping off. I chose that path, and this reeled me into the game story immediately. This part of the story was the most entertaining, compelling, and just jaw-dropping portion of the story. I was like, okay, this one's good. And now I'm hooked. You had my interest. Now you have my attention. But before we jump straight into it, there's something important I need to tell you. The Kingdom of Iria is a kingdom that either people want to conquer or become allies with more than any other kingdoms. Do you know why? It's because they have the most important resource in the entirety of the game. In fact, I dare say it's at the heart of all the conflict and warfare that is occurring. It's called Luxite. And this resource is a potent resource that enables kingdoms to have more powerful military, as it can improve their magical prowess. It also is a resource that can stabilize economies. Essentially, it's very rare and very important. And the Kingdom of Iria has it in abundance, while every other kingdom, well, scarce. So you can see why political figures outside of this kingdom will want to get their hands on that resource. Anyways, let's take a look at this dialogue, and I think you're going to understand why it was so compelling and interesting to me. Okay, so this is the part of the story that I was telling y'all about that was just, it was awesome. I loved it. And I want to give a little bit of context here before we react to some of it. But essentially what happened is, this is Dantalion, the king of Iria, the guy who runs the show there. And this is his sister, Inanna, the princess of Iria. And she basically stormed into the office, like kind of upset at him, and was saying that she was going to go to Wave Run City, where all the civilians are going to be gathered on a specific day to vent their frustrations about how they're being mistreated throughout the kingdom and stuff, based off of the things he has been having them do. And she was telling him that she's going to go over there and listen to the people. She's pretty much your typical kind of princess, where she's very empathetic, innocent, and pure, and just a sweetheart. And she wants to do the right thing and what's best. And she's also naive. What was crazy about this part is that Dantalion was trying to convince her not to go, and he was selling it very well. And then she was being stubborn and insisting on going anyway. But then he eventually says, fine, you have my support. She gets taken aback by this, and she's like kind of happy about it because her brother is like unwavering. This guy's very strong-willed, very calculative, and he has a lot of resolve, and he leaves his emotions concealed all the time. Like he's one of those people that's hard to read. You don't know what he's thinking. He's always 2 steps ahead type of ordeal. So when he said she could go, that caught her off guard. But little did she know, bro wanted her to go the whole time. And I was like, oh, hold on, bro. You're gonna say I gotta play this because this was great. She said, I'll see to it that gets done. This was her being like excited and proud that he said she could go.
これでは自ら小口に飛び込むようなもの。
Like sending a lamb into a den of lions.
彼女をどう利用されるおつもりですか？
How do you intend on using her?
貴女に部隊を率いてウェーブランに行ってもらう。イナンナの親衛隊だけで王女を守れるようなら。
If Inanna's guards alone can keep her safe,
静観していてくれ。
stay out of it a little while longer.
いよいよ開戦だ。
I sense war is upon the horizon. So let's start here real quick. Stop here real quick. This guy sent her to Wave Run City, knowing full well that there were people there planning to assassinate the princess, that a war was about to break out in the middle of the city. He knew it the whole time, pretended like he didn't want her to go. And then the whole time his plan was for her to go, which that's going to be revealed here in a bit. But this told me everything. I was like, oh my, this guy has that cold demeanor and intent in resolving ambitions to do what's necessary to be a successful king that is capable of maintaining power and control over his lands and his kingdom. This dude is cold-blooded, bro.
我々には他にもっと大切な任務がある。
Also fantastic voice acting, but it's not that he's evil, and this will come, at least based off of what I've seen, and this will become very apparent when you see he's just very calculative and he does not miss on opportunities. So we go straight into this part right here, and this is where the princess went to go talk to the people, and the people were already upset, and little did she know there was a third party at play already planning to make all this happen. And there you go. One of the people killed one of the guards, which is crazy. Civilians killing guards. Of course, she's in shock. So this is like her protector and one of her best friends as well, Aisha. And here's a cutscene. The game's got gorgeous cutscenes, by the way. All of them look very well adapted. But I was going to say, so now this is after that all unfolded. The princess comes back into the room. She's upset, obviously, because now she knows that the Italian knew what was going to happen there all along, and he still sent her there.
戻ったか。ご苦労だった。
This is his response. And he knows she knows too.
分かっている。貴女の身に何があったのかを。言いたいことは山ほどあるだろう。では、始めるがいい。ただの愚痴ではないといいのだがな。
兄上はわざわざ私のお葬式まで。
So at first when I saw that line, I was like, The thought did cross my head that, oh wait, bro, did he want her to die? But that's not the case. This was all due to a plan here that's going to be revealed here soon.
その価値は貴女なら理解できると信じている。あれは貴重な勝利のみならず、それ以上のものをもたらしてくれた。
We have it to thank for our victory, among other things. This guy is incredibly tactful.
私がウェーブランへ赴くことに同意したとき、
And there's the question. Is this why you even let me go to Waverun City in the first place?
すでに計画なさっていたのですか？
世はいかなる好機も逃さん。だが、あの計画は貴女がここで決心を告げた後に決めたものだ。
he said, even so, you are my sister, basically implying or alluding to the fact that no, he didn't, but he did. No, he did.
なんと言っても世の妹だからな。
いつだって兄上は理屈だけはご立派ですものね。もし私が行かなかったら、あれらのことは起きずに済んだのでしょうか。
騎士連合は喉から手が出るほど硝石を欲している。
And this was the part where I was explaining to you guys of how everybody's pretty much fighting over this resource called Luxite. The Union is desperate for Luxite, and their greed blinded them to the point of provoking all-out war. And what was cool about this section of the story, that's not in the main story, it's in that side part that I was telling you guys about, is this filled in the blank in the very beginning where we were in the middle of the jail cell. Those guys were planning that, coup to pretty much cause a war. This is why, and then he even goes to state who is doing it, which is the Union.
手に入れるためなら手段を選ばない。たとえ戦争を起こしてでも。
So the Union is essentially the external faction or kingdom that incited the war for the kingdom of Iria. Which I haven't met anybody from that area yet. I look forward to meeting those guys.
奴らはウェーブランに次々と手の者を送り込んで。
They flooded the streets of Waverun City with their soldiers and filled the pockets of traitors. So they paid off basically all of those fake soldiers in the beginning that were pretending to be on the side of Iria.
イリアの反逆者を買収した。あの時のように。いいなんだ。シルビア王妃崩御の経緯は。
So when he mentioned this is what led me to believe it's probably what got him to be so cold. Princess Sylvia, this guy's currently the king. He's speaking in terms of as if she's gone already. So I guess this must have been his beloved. This is just me putting two together. I'm still experiencing the story as we speak. And that's probably what led this guy to be so freaking cold-blooded.
貴女も世も重々承知のはずだ。
だからって。
貴女の存在はただ奴らがウェーブランで兵力を集めるペースを乱し。
So him sending her there was simply a means to stir up the conflict sooner than they anticipated.
この戦を比較的有利な時期に。
And that gave us the advantage as they had not yet finished assembling their forces. So he made them basically pre-start their plans way quicker than they should have, which put them at a disadvantage and enabled them to get the jump on them. But that's all I'm going to show. I don't want to show any more. I freaking love this guy, Dantalion, though, bro. Like he's got it. And he drew me into the story. He also has a little brother that's in chapter 2 of the story. And their dynamics, very fascinating. I can already see the detriment of their relationship down the line, turning into, pulling on the heartstrings and just being a sad thing to see, all due to like a misunderstanding between the two. But that was a good representation of what you can expect the dialogue to look like and what it can turn into in Sword of Convallaria. YouTube fam, I am not being disingenuous at all when I say this. This game has a fantastic story, and you will absolutely enjoy it if you're a Game of Thrones fan, a Final Fantasy Tactics fan, a Fire Emblem Three Houses fan. You're going to enjoy this story. Trust. You got to give it a chance. You'll really like it. If you ended up enjoying what you saw, don't forget to download Sword of Convallaria. It is completely free 99. It's already out now. You can use my link down below in the description box or the pinned comment in the comments section. That's going to wrap up my story review with the experience and time that I spent with it. Thanks for watching. Big shout out to the Sword of Convallaria development team for sponsoring this video again, and I'll see you guys in the next video.